The phone call came while I was sedated in the ICU, hooked to machines that were keeping me alive after a massive pulmonary embolism. My brother Jake answered my phone and put it on speaker so I could hear Mom's voice through the fog of medication. "Jake, tell your sister she needs to stop being so dramatic about this hospital thing. We've already had to cancel dinner reservations twice because of her medical emergencies." Through the ventilator tube I couldn't respond. Jake looked uncomfortable. "Mom, she's in intensive care. She almost died yesterday." "Oh please. Doctors are so overdramatic these days. They keep people in hospitals for everything. When I was her age we just toughed things out." Dad's voice joined the call. "We're not canceling our anniversary cruise for this medical drama. We've been planning this trip for months. If she was really that sick the doctors would have fixed it by now." I tried to squeeze Jake's hand to get his attention, but the sedation made everything feel distant and slow. "Mom," Jake said carefully, "the doctor said it was touch and go for a while. The blood clot could have killed her. Blood clot, respiratory infection, whatever. The point is she's fine now or they wouldn't still have her talking and conscious. We're not putting our lives on hold every time she has a little health scare." A little health scare. I'd been airlifted to the hospital after collapsing at work when a massive blood clot traveled to my lungs, cutting off oxygen and causing my heart to go into failure. The ICU team had worked for 6 hours to stabilize me. "Besides," Mom continued, "this medical stuff is getting expensive. Thank God for good insurance, but still. She needs to learn to take better care of herself instead of always ending up in hospitals." The irony wasn't lost on me even through my medicated haze. My parents had spent my entire life dismissing my health concerns as attention-seeking behavior. When I was diagnosed with a genetic clotting disorder at 25, they'd called it another excuse for doctor visits. When I had to start blood thinners and regular monitoring, they complained about my medical obsession. Now at 29 I was fighting for my life while they planned their vacation. "We'll visit when we get back from the cruise," Dad said. "Assuming she's still in the hospital, which she probably won't be. These doctors keep people longer than necessary for the money." What my parents didn't know was that I wasn't just another patient running up medical bills on their insurance policy. I was Dr. Maya Chin, Director of Claims Review for Meridian Health Insurance, the company that held their policy. And I'd been getting very familiar with their recent claims history. Jake stayed after the call ended, looking troubled. "Maya, I'm sorry. They don't understand how serious this was." I managed to nod slightly. Through the medication and machines I was thinking about the claims reports I'd seen cross my desk. My parents' policy had some very specific exclusions they weren't aware of. Exclusions that would become relevant very soon. The next morning, Dr. Rodriguez explained my treatment plan to Jake while I listened from my hospital bed. "She'll need at least 2 more weeks in intensive care, followed by several months of careful monitoring. The clotting disorder makes this extremely dangerous. We're talking about ongoing anticoagulation therapy, regular blood work, possibly surgical intervention if we see more clot formation." "What's the long-term prognosis?" Jake asked. "Good if she follows the treatment protocol exactly. But this condition is serious. One more clot like this could be fatal." My phone buzzed with texts from family members who'd heard about my hospitalization through Jake. "Aunt Sarah, heard you're in the hospital again. Your parents are right, you do seem to have a lot of medical drama. Hope you feel better soon. Uncle Mike, Maya, your mom mentioned another health emergency. Maybe try getting more exercise. Fresh air works better than hospitals sometimes. Cousin Lisa, girl, you need to stop scaring everyone with these hospital trips. Live a little. Life's too short to spend it worrying about every little symptom." The family had completely bought into my parents' narrative that I was a hypochondriac who dramatized minor health issues for attention. They had no idea I was fighting a genetic condition that could kill me at any moment. What they also didn't know was that I'd been tracking some interesting patterns in the family's insurance claims. Hold up. By day 3 in the ICU I was conscious enough to work on my laptop for short periods. My assistant Jennifer had been handling my urgent cases, but there was one file I needed to review personally. Policy holder, David and Margaret Chin. Policy number, MH2847593. Status, under review for coverage violations. My parents' insurance policy had triggered multiple red flags in our automated review system. In the past 18 months, They'd filed claims for several expensive procedures and treatments that required pre-authorization. Authorization they'd never obtained. Dad's knee replacement surgery, $85,000. Performed without pre-authorization at an out-of-network facility. Mom's cosmetic procedure disguised as medically necessary skin lesion removal, $12,000. Later determined to be purely cosmetic based on surgical photos. Dad's emergency room visits for minor issues that could have been handled at urgent care, $23,000 total across 8 visits. Most significantly, they'd been using their insurance to cover treatments at an expensive wellness center that wasn't actually licensed to provide medical care. The facility offered expensive vitamin drips, oxygen therapy, and other alternative treatments that weren't covered under their policy. Total questionable claims, $127,000 over 18 months. As Director of Claims Review, I was authorized to conduct full audits of suspicious accounts and recommend policy actions including coverage suspension, premium adjustments, or policy cancellation. My parents had no idea their insurance was under investigation. They also had no idea that the daughter they were dismissing as overdramatic was the person who would determine whether their policy remained valid. Jake visited Thursday morning with an update on the family's activities. Mom and Dad left for their cruise yesterday. They said to tell you they hope you're out of the hospital soon. Did they say anything else? Dad mentioned how expensive this hospital stay must be, but at least their insurance is good. Mom said something about how they've been getting great value from their policy lately. I pulled up their claims history on my tablet. Great value was right. They'd submitted $31,000 in claims just this month, including Dad's latest emergency room visit for what turned out to be mild indigestion, and Mom's $8,000 claim for therapeutic massage at their wellness center. Jake, do you know what I do for work? Something with insurance, right? Customer service or claims processing. I'm Director of Claims Review for Meridian Health Insurance. I investigate fraudulent or questionable insurance claims and determine policy coverage decisions. He looked confused. Meridian? That's Mom and Dad's insurance company. Yes. So you work for their insurance company? I run the department that reviews their insurance claims. Maya, does that mean? It means I've been watching Mom and Dad commit insurance fraud for the past year and a half. Jake sat down heavily. Insurance fraud. They've been filing claims for non-covered services, lying about medical necessity, and using their policy to pay for expensive treatments at facilities that aren't even licensed medical providers. How much money are we talking about? $127,000 in fraudulent claims that I can prove. Probably more that I haven't finished investigating yet. Maya, what happens when insurance companies find fraud? Policy cancellation. Demand for repayment of fraudulent claims. Sometimes criminal prosecution for insurance fraud, which is a felony. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Hope you're feeling better. Cruise is amazing. Dad's knee feels great after all those treatments. Good thing insurance covered everything. See you when we get back. Face blowing a kiss. I showed Jake the message. They're literally bragging about insurance fraud while I'm in the ICU. What are you going to do? My job. Friday afternoon, I called a meeting with my investigation team via video conference from my hospital bed. Team, I need a full audit completed on policy MH2847593. Priority case. I want every claim from the past 2 years reviewed, every provider contacted, every procedure verified. My senior investigator Marcus looked concerned. Maya, you should be resting. We can handle routine audits without you. This isn't routine. This is a complex fraud case involving multiple providers and systematic abuse of policy benefits. The policyholders are about to face significant medical expenses, and I need the fraud investigation completed before they try to file claims for legitimate care. How significant are the medical expenses? I gestured to the ICU around me. Significant. Revelation. The audit results came back Tuesday morning, the day my parents returned from their cruise. The findings were worse than I'd initially calculated. Total fraudulent claims, $187,000. Number of false claims, 23. Unlicensed providers used, 4. Forged medical necessity documentation, 8 instances. Criminal fraud threshold, exceeded. Marcus called with the final report. Maya, this is one of the most extensive fraud cases we've seen. They've been running systematic scams across multiple providers. The wellness center they've been using? It's not even a medical facility. It's a spa that's been billing insurance companies for fake medical procedures. What's the recommendation? Immediate policy cancellation, full restitution demand, and referral to law enforcement for criminal prosecution. Execute it. Maya, are you sure? These are your parents. These are criminals who've been stealing from insurance pools that cover legitimately sick people. Execute the investigation findings. That afternoon, while I was being moved from ICU to a regular room, my parents received certified letters at their home address. The first letter: Notice of Policy Cancellation for Fraudulent Claims Activity. The second letter: Demand for restitution of $187,000 in fraudulent claims. The third letter: Notice of Criminal Referral to State Insurance Fraud Investigation Unit. My parents called Jake in a panic around 4 p.m. Jake, something's wrong with our insurance, Mom said. They're claiming we filed fraudulent claims. This has to be a mistake. They want us to pay back almost $200,000, Dad added. They're saying we used unlicensed providers and filed false claims. This is insane. Jake looked at me from his chair beside my hospital bed. Did you call the insurance company to dispute it? Of course we called, Dad said. They transferred us to some investigation department. The woman said our file was under review by the Director of Claims Review and all decisions were final. Did you get the director's name? I asked quietly. Jake put the call on speaker. Mom, what was the name of the person reviewing your case? Dr. Maya Chin, Mom said. Completely unsympathetic. She wouldn't even listen to our explanation. She kept saying the evidence was conclusive and that we should contact an attorney. Dr. Maya Chin? Jake repeated. Yes. Cold, rude woman. No understanding of how insurance is supposed to work. We've been loyal customers for 15 years and this is how they treat us. I took the phone from Jake. Hi, Mom. Maya? Why do you have Jake's phone? This is my phone, Mom. Jake was visiting me in the hospital. Oh. Well, we just got back from our cruise and we're dealing with this insurance nightmare. Some awful woman at the insurance company is claiming we committed fraud. Mom, I am that awful woman at the insurance company. Complete silence. What do you mean? Dad's voice quieter now. I'm Dr. Maya Chin, Director of Claims Review for Meridian Health Insurance. I've been investigating your fraudulent claims for 3 weeks. I signed the orders for your policy cancellation, restitution demand, and criminal referral. Maya, that's impossible. You work in customer service. No, Dad. I have a doctorate in health economics and I run the fraud investigation department for a major insurance company. I've worked there for 6 years. But you never said. You never asked. You were too busy dismissing my health problems and bragging about how much money you were stealing from my company. Mom's voice was shaking. Maya, you're our daughter. You can't do this to your own family. You did this to yourselves when you decided to commit felony insurance fraud. We didn't know it was fraud. Mom, you filed claims for cosmetic procedures and called them medically necessary. You've been paying a spa to submit fake medical bills to insurance. Dad's been going to the emergency room for hangnails and claiming it was life-threatening. You absolutely knew it was fraud. Maya, please. Can't you just fix this? Make it go away. Even if I wanted to, which I don't, I can't make felony fraud disappear. The State Insurance Fraud Unit will be filing criminal charges. You'll likely face fines, restitution, and possible prison time. Prison. Dad's voice cracked. Stat. Prison. Insurance fraud is a serious crime. Resolution. My parents hired an expensive attorney who immediately advised them to plead guilty and negotiate for reduced charges. The evidence I'd compiled was overwhelming and indisputable. While they dealt with their legal troubles, I recovered from my pulmonary embolism and returned to work. The irony wasn't lost on anyone at Meridian Health Insurance that our Director of Claims Review had been hospitalized with a life-threatening condition while her own parents were committing fraud against the company. My boss, Director Williams, visited me during recovery. Maya, I want you to know that your work on this case was exemplary. Personal relationships cannot interfere with fraud investigation, and you handled a difficult situation with complete professionalism. Thank you, sir. Also, the board has approved your request for the new genetic disorder coverage initiative. Your personal experience with this condition has helped us understand gaps in our coverage for hereditary illnesses. The genetic clotting disorder that my parents had dismissed as medical drama was now helping me develop better insurance coverage for thousands of patients with similar conditions. My parents ultimately pleaded guilty to insurance fraud charges. Mom received 2 years probation and $50,000 in fines. Dad got 6 months in minimum security prison and $75,000 in fines. They were also required to pay full restitution to Meridian Health Insurance. The family rallied around them, convinced that I'd somehow orchestrated a vendetta against my own parents. Aunt Sarah called me vindictive and ungrateful. Uncle Mike said I was destroying the family over paperwork. They still didn't understand that I'd simply done my job, protecting insurance pools from criminals who drive up costs for legitimately sick patients. 6 months later, when my parents were struggling to find new health insurance with their fraud convictions on record, Dad called me. Maya, we're having trouble getting coverage anywhere. Every company runs background checks now. Could you help us find a policy? Dad, insurance companies don't cover people with fraud convictions. That's why fraud is a serious crime. But what are we supposed to do? We need medical coverage. You should have thought about that before you decided to steal from insurance companies. Maya, please. We're your parents. You're also convicted felons who cost my company hundreds of thousands of dollars. I never heard from them again. My genetic clotting disorder required ongoing monitoring and expensive medications, but my comprehensive health insurance, earned through my legitimate career in healthcare economics, covered everything I needed. Sometimes the people who dismiss your struggles are the same people who'll need your help someday. Sometimes justice is simply letting them face the consequences of their choices. The coverage I'd fought to develop for genetic disorders helped thousands of patients get the care they needed. The fraud I'd investigated protected premium costs for millions of honest policyholders. Some family bonds aren't worth preserving when they're built on crime and dismissal of your actual struggles.